Hey y'all, welcome back to Exile Wargaming, where today, and as always, we're still talking about Harlequins in a Warhammer 40k battle report against the Adeptus Custodes and the Lions of the Emperor Detachment. Now, I recently put out a poll on our Discord, and the community has spoken. It is troops and falcons. So we have 3 troop masters, no Weaver's Whale, we didn't have the points, and a solitaire to round out the character spot. We're bringing 6 units of 5 troops total. 3 of them will be bare bones inside of Star Weavers, and the Troop Master units will be getting out of 3 Falcons. Hopefully, those rerolls do us some good in this game. We're bringing 4 Sky Weavers in a brick with Haywire and Zephyr Glaives to take advantage of the Weaver's coil stratagem, and then a bunch of trash in 2 units of 3 Shroud Runners and 3 units of 5 Rangers. We're coming in at 19 total units at 1,995 points. The goal of this list is to just kind of stress test how impactful the Falcons could be. Now, our opponent today is bringing the Adeptus Custodes and the Lions of the Emperor Detachment. Now, in this detachment, as long as our opponent's units are, I believe, 6 inches away from each other, they get +1 to hit and +1 to wound. There aren't a ton of really great stratagems that are useful against us. He's basically just running data sheets at us and hoping that it's enough. He has Trajan Valoris, a shield captain in Alaris Terminator armor, and Admona Mortis. These names are ridiculous, but I think it just gives them extra strength and potentially damage. And then Lord Inquisitor Draxus. He has 6 units of 4 Custodian Guard total, just spamming as many of them as he can. I believe a 4-man unit is like 150 points. Trajan will be attached to a unit, I think, with all spears. The shield captain in Alaris armor will be attached to 3 Alaris custodians. He has 2 units of 4 witch seekers, a unit of 4 prosecutors, and 2 Caladius grav tanks to round out the list. He's coming in at 12 total units at 2,000 points on the nodes. This is quite a few more units than I believe we see in most Custodes lists. I am very interested to see how spamming all of these guard are going to pan out. Now, we're going to be playing a mission I am not sure I have played yet, which is Mission I, Hidden Supplies and Search and Destroy style deployment on GW Terrain Layout 6. Now, right off the bat in the deployment phase of this, I was kind of all out of sorts. I am not entirely sure I have played Hidden Supplies on Search and Destroy on this specific map in a very long time, if not ever. So we're just kind of going through the motions here and hoping that we do it as best as we can. There's so many units on our side of the board. We are putting one of our Falcons in strategic reserve or to rapid ingress later on in the game. But for the most part, we're just taking up space and looking to move across the board as quickly as possible. So we have our unit of Shroud Runners over here. We can get a really great scout and use them to jail our opponent on their section of the board early on if we need it. We also have this unit of Shroud Runners to do that as well towards this section of the board. We have a unit of Rangers up here. I believe they may have been back a little bit to be a second wave. Or maybe the first wave if we want to jail our opponent up here as well. And then another unit of Rangers, I believe, right back here. So the final unit is just holding our home field objective. But essentially what we're looking to do, especially if we get to go first, is push up as much as we can, jail our opponent in, hand them potentially a 0 in primary, moving into turn 2, and then just run away with the game. Now, if we go second, we are very fortunate that our opponent does not have any blade champions or anything like that, so he doesn't have advance in charge. He's kind of just slogging all of these guys across the board. While there are a ton of them, and it's a lot of wounds to chew through, the mobility isn't that great. So even if our opponent gets to go first, I think their best chance is to maybe advance and hold some of these objectives, but they're not going to get these full units on for the most part. So we could contest and still hold our opponent to a 0 on primary early on. This does not seem super great for our opponent. I am just going to see how many bodies I can throw at him, and if we run away with the score, then we are in really, really great shape. But essentially all we're doing is positioning our Falcons so that they can react wherever they need to later on in the game. Potentially on this section of the board, this is a really great line of sight, and then grabbing this section of the board is pretty incredible as well. If we could advance one of these Falcons back here, we have something to fight on this objective. That's at least my thought going into this. I'm just going to utilize our Star Weaver, our bare bones troops to start engaging, and then hope that the Falcons can finish it off. Our opponent deployed pretty much how we would expect. Everything has to be pretty close to the line. Otherwise, a lot of his units are just going to be out of range of doing anything early on in the game. So there's 2 units of 4 Custodes right here. Then he has the Caladius Grav Tank back here. If he gets down towards this section, this is a really good line of sight. And then this Caladius up here, just threatening all of this as well. He has a couple units of Witch Seekers that can scout. The Terminators are up here as well, and then 2 more units of guard on this section of the board. Trajan Valoris is in Deep Strike, and Draxus's unit is on the home field objective with a unit of prosecutors screening out everything here. So now that we are done with the longest description of deployment I think I've ever done in a video, we get into turn 1 where we win the dice roll and get to go first. All we are going to do in this turn is stage everything we possibly can to hold some objectives and be a counterpunch to whatever our opponent wants to throw at us. We bring up a unit of Shroud Runners that I believe was right here, all the way up towards this section of the board. We just want to clog up these 2 objectives. I do not care if our opponent decides that they want to push all of these Custodian Guard out here. This is a long way to slog for them, and we have a ton of units at this point in the game where we could whittle them down pretty easily, especially with this unit getting out of a Falcon. We have a Star Weaver that we can kind of throw up to protect that unit as well, and then we're playing this game back and forth with this Caladius. So I don't care if our opponent wants to start pushing this out here. I learned my lesson in our CSM game in that sometimes it's okay to give our opponent the option to make a bad play. At least that's what I feel like this would be early on. So our Shroud Runners are going to come push up this section of the board over here in a move block, and then our Rangers that were back here are going to push up towards this section of the board. Everything else is going to stage behind this objective and just be a counterpunch. These 2 objectives here are the closest our opponent's going to score on. This is most likely what they want to be fighting over the course of the game itself. So as long as we get some OC over here, a Falcon to punch one of these units or potentially help bring down this Grav Tank, we're in really, really good shape. Otherwise, we just position everyone we can up on these objectives and force our opponent to try to make a move. There is a unit of Rangers right here. Our Falcon is tucked in this corner. The Grav Tank, I believe we measured it, is only going to get up to about here with a really great roll, and still cannot get shots down into this Falcon. So we're pretty safe. We'll put the Solitaire up here as well as we draw established locus and extend battle lines to make sure that we get as many points in secondary as we can. In the shooting phase, as our opponent moved back their unit of Witch Seekers over here, the other unit tucked into this as well. We did have an angle into one of them with 2 of our Shroud Runners, and we were able to bring down all of these Witch Seekers. So that was pretty nice for us. Every time we remove a resource from the board, we are forcing a unit of Custodes to stand on an objective instead of come after us in the late game. In our opponent's turn 1, he draws a tempting target and recover assets. So he kind of put himself in this spot where he has 0 secondary points, and if he doesn't start moving out, he's going to fall way behind in the primary game. So he does end up pushing these units up and out. and putting some shots in wherever he can. By the end of this turn, all of these units themselves, he did not fire into. He didn't fire into the Shroud Runners. He didn't fire into the Rangers. And I don't believe he fired here or had an angle into anything over here. We actually got a perfect spot for this Falcon to kind of clear this section of the board. So our opponent uses the charge phase to steal some extra movement and get onto these objectives. After kind of deliberating what he could do or what he maybe shouldn't do in the shooting phase, this is kind of where he settled on. So he's going to move this unit of Custodian Guard up into the Shroud Runners. They are easily going to fall, and then he's going to contest this objective from us on the following turn. Unfortunately, the Witch Seekers were not able to get onto this after they failed to charge into the Star Weaver, and then the Caladius Grav Tank charged the Rangers, got long enough to get up and around, and gets its nose or its back end on this objective as well, with more OC on it than our Star Weaver. So this was pretty smooth of our opponent to get onto some of these objectives. He is going to wipe out everything he sees up here and then just contest us from scoring, too much in the remainder of the game. Now, in our turn 2, instead of scoring a 15, we ended up scoring a 10. So that was pretty nice on our opponent's side, but we draw overwhelming force and recover assets. We are going to bring down our Falcon at this section of the game for some ancillary firepower. We just want to make sure that we are downing whatever it is that we need to down, and he is in a very, very safe position at this point. So we can either push towards the middle in the later section of the game if our opponent or next turn decides to come up towards either of these two objectives, or we can crash in over here. Everything else on this bottom section of the board is just going to move up and start getting to work on this grav tank. So we let out one of our units, a Harlequin troop, from the Falcon. We get all the way up here. The Falcon's going to position. It's fully on the terrain and nose out to shoot into the Caladius grav tank. I do not believe it did any wounds, but we're going to move these Shroud Runners up as well to try to strip cover and get any extra wounds we can through. He is on this terrain. We are going to move out one of our Star Weavers up here so that our Troop Master unit can get back in if we really needed to. And then the unit that was inside of this Star Weaver is going to come up here and try to engage this unit of Custodian Guard. It may be able to shift over here as well. We moved up one of our barebone units. It did get overwatched by the Witch Seekers, and we lost 3 of them. We left both of the fusion pistols, and then the Star Weaver is going to come up as well. And then this Star Weaver is just going to move up a hair. We're not going to disembark the troop. We moved it up as kind of bait to see if our opponent would overwatch something, and he didn't. We were going to have to let loose one of these units because we're using a bunch of our movement tokens this turn. Someone was going to get overwatched, so this unit stayed in, and we're just going to shoot with our open top. And then our unit of Rangers that was back here is going to push up and just try to move block this section of the board so that he cannot easily engage us on this objective. We are all about scoring as much as we can. Now, in the shooting phase, we do a little bit more damage down here than I anticipated, but this is why we put the Sky Weavers where they were. They had angles, 3 of them into this Caladius Grav Tank, but everyone have angles right here, real cheeky, into this one. So we fire the Falcon into the Caladius Grav Tank. I'm not entirely sure how many wounds we did, but I do know that I think we brought it down like 14 wounds with just the fusion pistols alone from our Harlequin troop unit getting those rerolls, and we are able to bring this down. This let us fire into the other Caladius Grav Tank with all of these, and I think we only got maybe 6 wounds through. I think he's left at 8 remaining. So sometimes these are really swingy. You may just pick up something in one go, and other times you're just kind of real mad about it. So this was one of those times I was a little mad about it, but it's okay. 6 is definitely better than nothing. We fire our Star Weaver over here into this unit of Custodian Guard, and then the fusion pistols fire in as well. We pick up one of the guard on the center objective. There's also a solitaire here as well. This unit fires into this unit of custodian guard, and the shield saved them. We rolled a 1 on our damage, and we're not able to bring down one of them, so there's one left on 1 wound remaining. We pick up one of the custodian guard up here. That's this guy on this section of the board, and then I believe this falcon fired in somewhere else as well, or I think we only had it lined up to shoot into this. It didn't get many great targets. It may have gone in to help finish off these witch seekers. So in the charge phase, we move both of our Harlequin troops into the Alaris Custodians and a unit of 4 custodian guard themselves, just to keep them from heroic intervening on this section of the board. We move our Skyweavers in with the solitaire into these guys, and then both of our units of Harlequin troops into this 4-man unit of custodian guard down here. Now we started right here in the center. We do not want to lose the Skyweavers at this point, especially with this guy still hanging around. He can just start popping falcons for the remainder of the game every time he shoots. So if we can get rid of this early on before all of our falcons are exposed, then we're in pretty decent shape. We start here. Our opponent interrupts, fights on this section of the board, kills an entire unit of Harlequin troops, and puts 2 wounds on a troop master. Then we fight in with our unit of Harlequin troops as well, and bring down all of them except for 1 on 1 wound remaining with this unit of troops. So that shield saved him for this section of the board. Otherwise, we would have been able to move back our unit of troops into this Starweaver or our troop master. So this was brutally kind of close to a backbreaking at this point. I really thought we would have been able to finish this off. And then we do pick up one of our opponent's Alaris Custodes with our 2 Harlequin troop over here. Just failed a bunch of saves, and we rolled hot on the devastating wounds. So at the end of it all, we score 5 points for overwhelming force, 3 for recover assets, and then bring down a 3 out of 4 custodian guard over here, the custodian guard on this objective, a unit of witch seekers, and the Caladius grav tank, all on this turn alone. We are really getting to work at kind of piecemealing our opponent's army. In our opponent's turn 2, he scores 0 points in primary and draws Display of Might and Area Denial. So at this point, he kind of continues the not shooting our units approach. These rangers up here do not get shot at, and this unit does not get shot at as well, and he's just going to use them to kind of springboard some extra movement across the board. So the shield captain in Alaris Terminator armor is going to push out up here. He does put some shots into, I believe, one of these Starweavers, and the Starweaver does fall. It had the solitaire in it that embarked at the end of the fight phase last turn, and he is just going to jump out onto this objective. The unit of custodian guard that was over here is then going to push up and put some shots into this Starweaver. This unit of custodian guard, I believe, is the one that shot this. Maybe these guys shot this. They bring it down, and a bunch of the troop inside, unfortunately, at this point, we tried to fade back after its first opportunity to shoot. Now all these units are getting like +1 to hit and +1 to wound. So those 2 damage Custodes bolters are just lighting up the Starweavers themselves. We could not bring this all the way back, and we left 1 guy over here, and it just allowed the squad to get pretty much decimated. There may be 1 guy remaining, I'm not entirely sure, but he brought down this Starweaver, and is lining up a charge into our troop master and then our bare bones unit of Harlequin troops afterwards. So in the charge phase, our opponent gets a few monster charge rolls. He gets to go all the way around the Rangers up top here. The Alaris Custodians come into the Star Weaver towards the center of the board, and then this unit that was right here bangs like a 10-inch charge into the Skyweavers and a troop, I believe, that we had remaining afterwards. So this was not great for us. Draxus's unit is going to move into this unit of Harlequin troops at the end of it, and we're going to pretty much lose everything that he comes into contact with. At the end of the fight phase, he has cleared the mid board and is on both objectives, taking everything away from us. We fall out of combat with this unit of custodian guard over here, and then the troop master and all of our troops over here get wiped entirely. We still have the solitaire, we still have a falcon, there's no troops inside of it over here, and we still have the shroud runners over here to play the game. But at this point, our opponent has scored 5 points over 2 turns, and we have scored 24, I believe. So hopefully we have enough left over to just screen out some sections of the board, contest some objectives, and run away from here. In our turn 3, we score another 10 points in primary and draw Bring It Down and Cleanse. Now, we are going to push our Skyweavers up over here, and we are able to, I believe, bring down the Caladius Grav Tank in combination with the Shroud Runners and the Falcon all the way up here. This was very nice for us. We are going to get our Bring It Down points. On this section of the board, we are going to leave our Falcon where he is, kind of pushed up just a little bit, and put some firepower into this unit of Custodian Guard. We pushed our Solitaire up over here to threaten the prosecutors on our opponent's home field objective, but also to push back the rapid ingress from Trajan Valoris's unit. This is why everything you see is over here, and this was the only pocket I believe he was able to fit them in. We spanned out the Rangers over here. We had the Falcon over here. I think there's a lone troop that is just kind of rummaging around this section potentially, but everything else is just going to get to work in the fight phase. The troop from this Falcon are going to disembark. We fire into this unit over here. This Falcon's going to fire into this unit. We pick up one of the Custodian Guard. We pick up one of the Terminators up here as well, and then one over here. So we did okay in the shooting phase, but we're hoping to kind of finish it up in combat. So in the charge phase, we do a little bit of a shimmy in the middle. I believe this Falcon fired into the Alaris, so we are charging them with the Harlequin troop and then moving our Skyweavers back into this unit over here. They already did their job. They got rid of the Caladius. Whatever happens here just has to happen. So this unit getting out of the Falcon starts the combat on this section of the board, and we are able to bring down this unit. Our opponent then interrupts and brings down both of our Skyweavers, and then we fight into the Terminators and are able to bring them down just to, I believe, the wound remaining. He even reset, putting like 1 damage on the Troop Master's attacks, but just the high volume of devastating wounds and 1 damage attacks makes all of the really great things that these units do feel so much less impactful. At the end of it all, we're in pretty damn good shape. If our opponent moves anything, we can reactive into our Falcons and just reload them for a following turn. In our opponent's turn 3, he scores 5 points in primary and then draws no prisoners and marked for death. I believe the Shroud Runners were his marked for death target. He is going to come to 9 inches away from all of our guys and just hope to bang a bunch of long charges. This unit right here doesn't move. It should have a short charge into this if he really wanted, and I believe he put some shots into either this Falcon or this Falcon. Nothing in here is getting shot at, though, at this point, and the Shroud Runners fall to Draxus's unit. Now, in the charge phase, the best thing to happen in the entire game did. He moves his Custodian Guard into our 4-wound Falcon, fails to bring it down. The Falcon punches back and is able to bring him down in return. He rolled double ones for the saves and could not get rid of it. So this was pretty cool. He pushes the unit of Custodian Guard that were on this objective towards these troop, and then Trajan's unit does make the 9-inch charge into our troops themselves. Not all of them got to fight, and we did walk away with a troop master remaining on just 2 wounds. I'm not entirely sure how this happened because it doesn't add up, but this is where we were. It won't make a difference, but I think maybe we just busted a bunch of saves. I don't remember entirely, but at the end of this turn, we're doing really great. We've taken over almost every section of the board. Moving into our turn 4, we score 15 points in primary and draw no prisoners and display of might. We just line all of our Falcons up to fire into Trajan's unit up here to get a couple no prisoner points. Everything else is just going to either sit on or hold objectives from here. The troop master falling back did absolutely nothing, and the solitaire came all the way up over here. I believe for display of might or to get out of range of Draxus's unit. That makes a little bit more sense. But this is pretty much the writing on the wall. Our opponent, if he moved all of these up instead of moving back towards his objective over here, we can score him a 10 on primary and then fill out the game with some secondaries, leaving us the victor 90-45, and that is giving our opponent a very gracious 10 points in primary on the final turn and a max of his secondaries. So we did really, really well this game, but it kind of went exactly as we played it out. We had the advantage right off the bat. Our opponent is playing a slow horde style elite infantry list, which is really kind of what we prey on, but specifically on this map with search and destroy style deployment and hidden supplies. I'm not entirely sure our opponent, if we got to go first, would ever have a chance of coming back from something like this, unless we did something absolutely idiotic, like charged our entire force into his lines all at once. At the end of turn 2, we had a 24-5 lead, and that is a really, really tough hill to climb. Now, what it ended up doing is forcing our opponent to come to us without much speed to do so efficiently. Understanding that he was way behind going into his turn 2, it really kind of forced him to put some units out in the open. And because our engagement ranges are so different, dramatically different, he had to expose his units. He couldn't engage us effectively. And then we had every ability to clap back into him safely afterwards. Our engagement range out of a Starweaver or a Falcon, just shooting, for example, without advance and charge is 13 inches. Well, our opponent has a 6-inch move and a 12-inch charge. So with a charge, he gets to move 18, while we're moving, 20 and beyond and shooting whenever we want to. So it made for a really tricky game on our opponent's part. He did a really great job of clearing everything out. Fortunately for him, our units are made of paper on the back end. Sometimes they survive way longer than they should against, elite style targets. But sometimes they fall to absolutely nothing. So we had the edge going into this game. The list felt great, but I'm not entirely sure about 3 Falcons. I think 2 are excellent. Possibly 2 Falcons and a Wave Serpent brick may be really, really strong. I think you want to diversify some of your units. That Wave Serpent brick does not cost much more than a 5-man and a Troop Master. It serves the same amount of damage as one of those units, but it spreads out its attacks into something like another Horde-style army that has 20-plus bodies in a unit. Maybe Necron Warriors come to mind. That's my main reason for wanting to bring something like the Wave Serpent brick, but also big units of Cadians with Bulgrin or something attached to them, or Orcs in that style horde. I would really like to have a brick as well. The Falcons by themselves feel really, really swingy on their own. If you've ever played Eldari before, you know that one Bright Lance feels like it always misses. Even if you shoot it for 5 turns in a game, it's that one bright lance, barely gets through. Once in a while, it does a little bit of damage. I seem to do more damage with the pulse lasers than anything else. But into vehicles, they're also really swingy. A lot of times, they're wounding on something like 5s. It's the troop buff that's truly amazing in both shooting and melee. The trade-off with your troop getting out of a Falcon, though, being the troop inside are often just a one and done type of missile unit, unless you plan to bring a Star Weaver around to protect them. So while the output is great, it is definitely not cheap. The total package is about 290 points for the Falcon, the unit of 5 troops, and the Troop Master. And if you're not planning your turns ahead or staging appropriately, it can be really, really detrimental. Otherwise, it seems to be best used as a unit to kind of clear a section of the board and not an initial engager, right? We don't want to throw away our Harlequin troop with troop masters going off to deal with something like a 200-point unit of our opponent's Terminators or Custodian Guard or whatever it may be, only for them to get clapped back into afterwards and lost entirely. The beauty of Star Weavers is that we get to go into our target, do a bunch of damage. Sometimes we have to combine our forces to finish off a unit, but then get back and protect them. Maybe the Star Weaver gets brought down and we bring them out behind line of sight somewhere, or maybe we just out activate our opponent. They don't have anything else to shoot into them with afterwards, so we get to use our Troop Master units more often. So the Falcon is going to bring them a much stronger punch, one shot, but the Star Weavers are going to allow them to continually fight over the course of the game. I'm not entirely sure which one I like more just yet, but I do feel like if you are bringing Falcons, you use them as a problem solver kind of unit. I don't like in this list that they were my main source of damage, and I had to hold off on them for almost the entirety of the game. I think they're great in a high unit count style army to be that final wave style of unit, right? You're going to trade back and forth on objectives over a couple turns typically. If your unit coming out of a Falcon is the last unit on that section of the board, then you know they're safe. You can re-embark and then move in for like a turn 4 or a turn 5 push with that same unit again. I think that's a really, really great option. Something else I did really like about the Falcons, especially if you're using them as like a problem solver, is the range firepower really helps support the Sky Weavers. Sky Weavers are super swingy. Sometimes you shoot something and you deal 15 wounds in a single turn. Sometimes you shoot them and they only do 6. Then you go into combat, your opponent makes a bunch of invulnerable saves, and they're stuck. They get wiped out by themselves. Just anyone with 3 damage attacks can clear a unit of 4 Sky Weavers without blinking. So being able to put some long range firepower down, place some sight lines or angles across the board with the Falcon, remove a couple extra guys, and then let the Sky Weavers just finish them off to utilize Weaver's Coil was really, really great. I got to be a lot more aggressive with them this game. But overall, I think this was a solid test for the Falcons, and I had an absolute blast getting them on the table. I think if it was into a different type of faction, this may have gone a little differently. I'm not sure if it's the path I want to take just yet, but I can absolutely see it being viable for anyone out there looking for a really solid problem solver style unit. But I hope you enjoyed. I am so glad I put up the poll in the Discord. It made everything so much easier. Y'all, I have a million ideas swirling around my head, and being able to lock down which one I want to tackle next is kind of a nightmare. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks again. Please like, share, subscribe, join the Discord. It always means more than you can possibly imagine. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.